So today I'm going to be talking a little more about my childhood and things that happen. So it's definitely about mental health issues and there's some violence and issues. So if you don't want to have your kids listen, probably be something that might kind of scare them. I don't know. But so before I was even born, things were definitely unraveling. Um, and I'm not sure if this was the first time my dad got sick, but I think there was signs of it. Um, when they first met, my mom believed that they were both just kind of having a nervous breakdown issues. Is kind of what brought them together. But um, my mom later realized that it was definitely more than that. So my mom was pregnant with me, and she could tell there was something seriously wrong. Um, and my dad would get to where he would stay up all night. He wouldn't sleep. He would oftentimes want to all of a sudden clean everything. He wanted everybody to clean with him. He would just say things that were out of the norm. And my mom knew at that point it wasn't something that she could even convince him to go, to the doctor. She would check his meds and know he wasn't taking his meds, and it would just, of course, make her panic. "Oh, no, the husband I know and love is going down this dark, deep path, and we don't know what's on the other side for us." So, this time she did what she thought would protect us. She was pregnant, Matthew was a little baby, and so she went to stay with my grandma, her mom, and her stepdad, so my step-grandpa, and, she just had barely little clothes, and she left there. I'm not sure all the circumstances exactly of what happened at that point. Um, of course, Matthew, at this point, probably really doesn't remember much of this, or he might, because he was one of those little kids that remembered everything that happened. But he was just little. He had to have been, maybe 1.5, going on 2 if I was in my mom's stomach, and I'm not sure how far along that she was with me. So anyway, this mental health crisis was kinda shocking that my family even loved him later. Um, but they did. They loved my dad. They knew that when he was a good person and not sick, that he was amazing. He was so fun to be around. He was so engaging. He loved everybody. He talked to anybody. He always reached out to people. He always wanted to know your life and wanted to know who you were, and he just thought everybody was so interesting, and he was just like that. He was never the type to be like, "Well, not talking to that person." He was just always so enjoyable to be around, of course, when he wasn't sick. So, sometimes the things that happen when even when you're a baby, I think it, goes I mean, I'm sure that even being in my mom's stomach, I knew I probably was just as scared as my mom. But anyway, this is how the story went. And this is the night that broke the fear of when my dad went mental and made us super scared of him during that time. So my mom is at my grandma's and step grandpa's. They were just keeping him safe and keeping her, from what I understood, they were all kind of like hiding in the back bedroom. And for a while, everything was quiet. Things were fine. They were just visiting, probably watching TV. And then all of a sudden, my dad was pounding on the front door and yelling and screaming and pounding on the windows and going to the back door and pounding on the back door, which was very close to where we all were. And the thing is, my dad would break down the door. And so the problem is that my dad wasn't just thinking that this was my mom trying to get away from him and like upset that she was gone. In his mind, my grandma and grandpa had kidnapped us. In his mind, she had my grandma had stolen my mom away and was trying to take his kids, and he was not going to have that. Like, they were the enemy and he was going to be Superman, and he, from his point of view, was that my mom needed somebody to save her from them. So while he's banging down the door, my grandpa thinks, you know what, it'd just be better if I went out there because he's gonna wreck my house. And it'd be better if I went out there and maybe I can talk some sense into him. And my mom was like, no, no, you're not gonna be able to. She just stayed in the bedroom and kept the doors locked. But my grandpa was insisting. He was like, no, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna talk to Steve. He's logical. He can think straight. It'll be fine. Just let me try to calm him down. He's gonna wreck my house. So he goes out on the front porch and my dad has a stick, and my grandpa, he was so strong. He could actually rip um like a deck of cards in half. And I know that sounds like far-fetched, but it was actually true. He would try to change a tire and strip the lug nuts. So it was like he was like a super strong guy. I remember um him just being so nervous when he would have to carry me or whatever, and he would be nervous because he didn't want to hurt me because he was so strong. My dad, when he was sick, he was as strong as like 10 men. So my grandpa grabbed a hold of the stick that my dad had barreled toward him and was holding on for dear life. But my dad was too strong for that. And he ripped it out of his hands. And he literally, as my grandpa was trying to protect himself, cut like down in between his fingers, like made them all bloody and cut. And so he was fearing for his life at this point. My grandma went to call 911. My mom's still locked in the bedroom. And he had tossed my grandpa aside like it was nothing. And he went after my grandma because she was on the phone. and been on a phone for a little while and sliced her neck open with a stick. But he could also see and hear that the cops were coming, and so he took off, and thank goodness that the cops came when they did. They had to bandage my grandma up. My grandpa had to be ran to the hospital, and I guess his hands looked like Q-tips from the stories I was always told. And he couldn't work, he couldn't do anything, so it was really upsetting to the family, obviously. My Uncle Bob came later because my mom was really scared, and she was by herself then, and he brought a bat and just stayed at the house, and my mom was just frightfully screaming in the bedroom. She was so terrified. And it's just actually pretty emotional and just thinking about it. Like, you know, I was thinking about forgiveness earlier, and th- that's a lot to forgive somebody for, but my family did. Like, they absolutely 100% forgave my dad for the crazy incident. I'm sure he felt terrible for it. He was later found downtown Portland, and they had taken him to Damage Hospital. I'm not sure it was then, but I know that there was times that they couldn't actually force you to go to Damage Hospital, but if you were willing to go, they would bring you. And I get that on one point. On the other point, it sure brings about quite a mental health crisis for those people going through even things. My dad didn't wanna do that. He didn't wanna do that. He would never have wanted to hurt anybody, you know, he would never want to make anybody die, for sure, and that was definitely on the table. So many things that can touch a family, or so many things that happen in mental health crisis, and we sometimes don't even realize. We look back on our past, and I'm like, "Oh my word, that happened." And then I'm like, "Well, no wonder I strive for to be in such a stable environment, and, like, being around things that are chaotic or look scary to me. I I wanna stay away from it. I don't wanna be around it ever. It's traumatizing to me."